Second half of our recap to Drive to Survive coming up now. Welcome to the United States of Formula One. Nicky.
Boogie.
Here to talk about the last 5 episodes of Drive to Survive.
Yes.
So, 6, let's just jump right into it. 6, I loved the first 5. Did you? You did?
Yeah. I like the show.
Yes.
I think that you get some value out of the show. I mean, it is dramatized.
Yes,
I know a lot of people don't like, the fact that they kind of make some mountains out of molehills, but it's TV. They're trying to keep it interesting and show you some behind the scenes. So you kind of have to, pick and choose, the parts that you like.
I think they want to make it for us avid F1 fans, and that for people who are never going to turn the TV on Sunday and watch the race.
Let's be honest. They're trying to bring more Americans, like we are, trying to bring more Americans to F1. What do Americans love?
Drama?
Drama.
Well, that is
so
true,
they're adding drama into a sport that should already have enough drama, but they're cranking it up to 11 because they want American money in F1.
I agree with you. So, let's just jump into it. We got, if you haven't watched part 1 yet, go back and watch it on episodes 1 through 5. Mm-hmm. But we're starting with episode 6, which I would say was
all about my papaya rules.
99.9% about McLaren and the papaya.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what the papaya is, it's this color right here.
Yes. And I think it's also a fruit, isn't it?
It sounds like a fruit. I think you are right.
What is papaya rules? And don't you know what the actual definition of papaya rule is?
I don't know.
By Zach Brown?
Race them hard, race them clean. Don't touch.
Don't touch. Yep. Race them hard, race them clean. You're his teammate. Race them hard, race them clean. Yeah. Don't touch. So that's what a papaya rules actually is, per Zach Brown. In case you didn't know what papaya rules were.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too much into what I think about those rules, but do they break anything down in the episodes talking about papaya rules except for the definition itself?
Well, they mentioned it, but papaya rules basically is, and this is a long-standing thing. This isn't a Zach Brown thing. This is a McLaren thing where they don't believe in the number 1 driver, number 2 driver. They believe that they have 2 number 1 drivers, which is great for the team, but may hurt an individual racer going for a driver's championship. And I think that their papaya rules and their philosophy hurt Lando Norris and cost him a chance. I don't know if he would have beat Max. Max was still is just so good.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would have beat him, but definitely took him out of the running, especially at Belfast.
Yes. We all know what happened there.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
Or Belarus, not Belfast. They did not go to Ireland. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Budapest.
Belfast. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So they basically talk in, when was the last time that McLaren has won on constructors?
1998. 98, yeah.
So 1998. They get into that. They get into a lot of the mistakes, granted, because of the papaya rules.
Yeah.
On what happened in a couple races now.
So I think they
Silverstone?
messed up a couple. Yeah, Silverstone and what was the other one? Canada
was horrible.
They messed up the pit stops pretty bad. Even Zach Brown came out and said, we need to do better. We messed up those pit stops. And they cost them some points, cost Lando points.
It cost Lando points, and then we all know the past, we have 2 number 1 drivers, this, that, and then Lando. I don't think it would have mattered, like you said, if these couple of mistake races, which are going to happen. Max had them. They had a little more. And then you basically lose the driver's championship, which is going to happen to the best racer in the world, right?
But what did they win for? Their consolation prize. Obviously Lando was crushed at Vegas because that's where he officially lost the driver championship. But then comes back, 2 weeks later at Abu Dhabi. And they win their constructor championship for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, 98.
And
that's huge. And that, for the team, and I think that's what they were kind of basing the whole season on, was a team.
Mm-hmm.
They technically they didn't win it as a team, so that's good. As far as episode 6, anything else that you remember we absolutely need to touch base on?
I think the biggest thing was I think Lando learned a lot last year, and I think that's going to help him this year and give him a better legitimate chance of becoming a driver championship. Mm-hmm. And correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but the $130 million prize that they won for winning the constructors, that's not going to hurt McLaren either.
That's not going to hurt because that's going to go into R&D.
Yeah.
You make that car even better when I think it was almost the best car last year.
And I'm sure they had a hell of a Christmas party since they won the constructors.
I guarantee it. I guarantee it. So let's get into episode 7. Mm-hmm. Episode 7 was basically talking about 5 childhood friends, all the
that was the Netflix gave everybody phones.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Was it an actual phone or was it like just...
No, they gave them phones
to record.
Yeah, so they gave one to Russell,
Albon, Norris, Leclerc, Gasly.
And Gasly. Yeah, those were the 5 that they gave phones to. So they got a little bit behind the scenes, which was really interesting. It was fun to watch.
Yes.
Lando getting the same hotel room at Singapore every year, and they thought, oh, is that superstitious? He's like, nah, it's just the one
they give me.
This is the one they give me.
So one thing I took out of that, did you think, and I'll say throughout the whole, they did not focus too much on our man, Daniel Ricciardo. And when he got in the car, do you think that upset him a little bit that he didn't get himself a Netflix phone to film?
Well, he didn't kart with those guys. He didn't grow up with them. He was substantially older than those core 5.
Yeah.
And they were kind of following, hey, we were all kart. I mean, even Alex Albon's like 4 years older than him.
Yeah.
So he was at the end of his karting career when those guys, kind of came in. He was the older one, and Lando was the youngest one. So I think the idea behind the show was just to get those 5 friends, and show where they were, what they did in karting, and where they are now, that they're all F1 drivers.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they showed them karting together as kids and basically dreaming of being an F1 driver. And you just got to think, too, how many other friends were there that did not make it to that level. But you got 5. That's a pretty good amount.
Pretty good.
So I also wanted to mention, too, and I believe they go to Singapore.
Yeah. They gave them those phones for 5 races, and they were going to let them do, behind the scenes, but pretty much they focused so much on Singapore.
Yep.
It was a lot about Singapore, which was, is a grueling race. I don't think I could race at Singapore. No. I've done some endurance racing in, the Midwest in July when it's like 98 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was so hard. I couldn't imagine being in Singapore where the humidity is like 90%, the temperature is 100 degrees, and you're sitting in a sauna for so long. I couldn't do
losing that much weight. Actually, I wouldn't mind doing it just to take a couple pounds off. It would just do it for me.
We can just go put you in the oven and just leave the oven on for a little while, and we'll just make our own.
I want to touch base on one thing. I said I was going to do some research on some dramatization that Netflix added, and when they had George Russell when he was pretty sick after that Singapore race because it was so hot. They did close the door, and Netflix added in like that dry heaving stuff. That did not really happen to George Russell. He did not feel good.
Poor George.
He did not.
Look at them throwing him under the bus.
He was actually not feeling good. He had probably some heat exhaustion, but
he's very dehydrated. I mean, all those drivers are dehydrated, and dehydration will cause you to,
I just like the fact that they added that in there. So I had to dig deep to find that one out, but I did, and I was like, okay. So George Russell was fine. He, like all of them, just needed to drink a whole bunch of water, or agua. And then episode 8, basically, we got 6, 7. No, we'll go into 8. 8 basically went into the drivers that failed, right? I mean, as far as not failed, but we're going to be cut.
Well, I think it was. I think failed's a little harsh. It's not wrong,
yeah,
but it's a little harsh. So that was kind of on the what's Christian Horner going to do? He has one driver that's underperforming in Checo, and he does have a kind of a soft spot for Danny Rick, which I don't blame him. Danny's awesome.
I have a soft spot.
I have a soft spot for him, and I think that Christian Horner, if you watch like past episodes of Drive to Survive, he was kind of really hurt when Daniel Ricciardo left and went to Renault, and so when he had an opportunity to bring him back, he brought him back. And I think that he left Checo in that Red Bull car for so long because it was pretty obvious that he was in a slump, and so I think he gave. The show kind of made it look like he kind of cut Checo off, but I don't think he did. I think he gave him every opportunity to come back, and he gave Ricciardo every opportunity to prove himself in the V-Carb, because that's who he wanted to put back in the car because he wanted, give him an opportunity to actually, race with Max because he had good times in practice. He was running good times, and unfortunately, Daniel Ricciardo even talked about this when he was being interviewed.
Yeah.
And he said, when I was younger, I never thought about crashing.
Yep.
And he's like, I don't think it affects me, but now sometimes I think about crashing.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, as somebody who used to race, when you start thinking about crashing, you're done. It's over.
Yeah.
So the minute that I saw that interview and he said, well, it doesn't affect me, but I think about it. I was like, no, you're done. It's over. It's in your head.
Yeah.
You can't
You no longer push the limits like you used to. And did you think, they basically, Checo, they talk about Lawson. They put Lawson in the car for a test, which he did before.
They made Max come in on his day off to run 3 laps.
You run a lap, and then we're going to see what Lawson does up against it. So, Yuki never had a chance. Did they even bring Yuki up really in the show having a chance?
No.
Not really.
They
don't think so.
They snubbed Yuki as hard as Horner did.
So, essentially what they do is they pick Lawson.
Yeah.
And they said the main reason, and Horner said it, is he said Daniel has the fire burning. He said, but Lawson, they're just stoking it with coals. I think it was his exact words is what he said. So when you got somebody young like that, and
he's a young Max.
Yeah.
He's Max from 10 years ago, So, hopefully, he said he's not there to make friends. He's there to win races, and that's kind of how Max kind of started out. Now, we know Max is really tight with Lando, and they're friends, and you can't be in this sport and not have friends. You have to be friends with the other drivers because they're the only people on the planet who understand what you're going through.
Yep.
But Lawson's, he's still young. He's very impatient. I wish him the best of luck, but I think he's still a year or two away before he actually puts it all together. And I hope that being in that Red Bull car,
I was going to say, unfortunately,
it gives him
tough.
the time. Unfortunately, I'm afraid he might have jumped out too soon.
So, and they also talk about Daniel Ricciardo losing his seat to Lawson on the Baby Bulls and or V-Carb team.
Yeah.
So, the only thing I would say that they did not add, which this episode basically was talking mostly about drivers that were replaced.
It was the end of Checo and the end of Ricciardo and the rise of Lawson.
Never was mentioned Logan Sargent in the show at all. They never mentioned Franco Colapinto, although they did show him one or two times. They never mentioned Franco Colapinto too. So they did leave some things. They left some of the drama with, I thought would have been great, some drama with Verstappen and Russell. Let's continue, maybe is coming into this year too. I think they squashed that beef. So they did leave some things out. So, and I thought that maybe that would have been the episode to squeeze it in. Maybe they have 10 episodes. You got to get the most important stuff in there.
It's weird where they decide to insert fake drama and then leave out the real drama that's actually happening. And I think that's why F1 fans might be a little sour to the show. Is it's like, we have real drama that's going on.
A lot.
There's budding, heads between Max and George, and they're like, oh, let's throw in some fake dry heaving, noises. Like, you didn't need to do that. Just cover the
real drama.
Yeah, cover the real drama. It's there,
good. Well, last but not least, episode. Well, no, are we on 8?
We just did 8.
So we got 9. So we got 2 more episodes left.
It should be Haas, right?
Yeah, 9 is talking about Haas and just a tiny little bit about
Alpine, right?
About Alpine and Flavio.
It was the battle of best of the rest was basically 9. And, and they talked about how Gunter got let go by Gene, and he was kind of the face for Haas. He was there since Haas came in to F1.
I love that guy too.
And everybody loved that guy. Wow. He was memeable. He was funny. He was great. As far as a team driver, I'm sure that he's a good team driver, and he wasn't working with a lot. But I think maybe we've talked about this before. Sometimes you just get stale, and you just need a change for the sake of change. And I think that's kind of what Haas did. They made a change for the sake of a change, and I think it helped them out last year.
I think it did too, because they almost, this close, could have got that the number 1 of the bottom teams.
Yeah, almost finished 6th. So, they grinded it out all year. I mean, they were getting points. I mean, Magnussen not so much. I mean, he got a couple points. But Nico Hülkenberg, he did really good. He was getting some top 10 finishes. He was getting some top 10 starts. And he was really grinding out a good season. Yeah. And then you go to Brazil, Sao Paulo, and you have all heck break loose. Yes. And that's where Alpine sneaks up and steals it from them.
So, Flavio, I love him. Now, do you think...
Now, see, you're a big Flavio fan. I'm not such a huge fan.
I am a fan. I think that
I'm a fan of the drama he brings.
Yeah, and I think that they're going to bring... I think he's going to bring that Alpine team up quite... I mean, at least I hope. And that's what he's saying. But he's old school.
Oh, he's so
He doesn't
old
take
school.
any...
He's very old school.
He doesn't take any crap at all. He comes in... Not saying it's just because he came in. There could have been a little bit of luck on that Sao Paulo race. But he comes in. They take basically the number 1 of the 2nd seed, so 6th place.
Yeah. So. Well, they did that because they're both drivers finished 2-3.
Yeah.
So they got 2 podiums. It was like the only points they scored all year.
Yeah. But when you get two people on the podium, that'll push you.
And to be fair, Haas did have, what was it, 4 races left? Because Sao Paulo, so then they would have they had 3 races left because then they came to Vegas and then they went to the desert to finish everything off because the last 3 are their desert races. Yeah. So Haas had opportunities.
They did.
All they had to do was score some points. So it's not like that was the final race of the year. Haas had its opportunities to come back and they just couldn't, come back and get it. No. But to back up a little bit, do you think that he changes the dynamic of the Alpine team, like being so old school like that? Do you think that maybe was the underlining factor of why Ocon left and went to Haas, because he didn't like that old school?
Absolutely. It seemed like to me they didn't get along, they weren't going to mesh, and that's why Ocon basically left. So I think, you're going basically from Alpine to Haas, so I don't know if that's if
it's a better working environment, though.
Yes.
I don't know if that's going to be Alpine's problem this year, is because I equate it to when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. I'm old, so when I was growing up and I was playing football in high school, they could still grab you by your face mask and rip you around and yell at you, and you had to earn your water breaks. And now people are more educated and more knowledgeable about safety, so they don't do that anymore. And that's, the old school way of coaching. Is he too old school for these young drivers? Is Duhan gonna survive underneath him? Or because his dad was a racer, a motorcycle racer, and is an old school guy himself, does he have a leg up because he understands old school, and now he's got an old school team?
That's a great question. That's going to be something we're going to have to find out. I'm looking forward to it. That's just something we're going to have to find out, but I love it.
So I think that was one thing that Drive to Survive did, is it kind of opened that door to let people kind of look into that back workings of, Alpine, and and then that sets it up. So when you watch this year's races, that gives you something to kind of look for and see, like, how's that old school influence working with these new school drivers.
Absolutely.
But let's get to the best episode,
grand finale,
the big finale. It was so much fun.
And they basically highlighted the best race of the season for one driver, and then the best race of the season for two drivers. So, I mean, they go through.
The best race of the season
was Brazil, right?
Oh, I was going to say Vegas because we were there.
Oh yeah, absolutely too. I wish they would. I kind of wish they would. They showed some Vegas. They didn't really get into it too much. They didn't show a whole lot, and we were there, so I wanted more Vegas.
I was very disappointed that they did not show our cameo from Vegas when we were walking the strip and signing autographs, taking pictures with people. They cut that.
Yeah.
Netflix. Why?
We had our race suits on. We were promised that they were going to show us in the show, and they took it out. And it's probably because people thought that we were better looking than some of the drivers.
I think it's because I think it was because Cookie's suit was maybe 2 sizes too small, and they would have had to blur it out.
Yeah, they had to blur out the whole bottom half, no matter which way he was facing.
So, but anyway, I'm sorry, Brazil. We were talking about Brazil.
Sao Paulo. Mm-hmm. I mean, the best race of the year for Max Verstappen, starts 17th. Basically cements his way. That Lando still had a chance.
He had a hope and a prayer at that point. Yeah.
But after that race, that went away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 17th.
I think it went away after Budapest, but I think Sao Paulo,
I mean, but mathematically they had him still in. That, I mean, absolutely 17th. Again, Alpines finished on the podium too, and is why they won what they did. But one of the best races you're ever going to really see from any driver.
I mean, anytime you have a race that literally changes the rules for next year, it was a good race, right?
Mm-hmm. And then they basically go right into Abu Dhabi, and that fighting battle. Now, Max Verstappen, you were world champion. And now we got two teams, not Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren, fighting for the Constructors' Cup going into the last race. Again, this is why last year was so great, is because when you're watching the last race and it actually means something is huge. So Ferrari's had a chance, McLaren's have a chance, and basically the only way McLaren can win is one driver needs to be ahead of both of their drivers.
Both of their drivers. And obviously, I'm a McLaren fan. Yep. I like McLaren. I like them as a team. I like both of their drivers, and I like Zach Brown. Yeah. But I'm also a Carlos Sainz fan, and I was heartbroken because he wanted to win something for Ferrari on his way out. He wanted that so bad. And you've seen those interviews where he was just absolutely heartbroken at the end of that, and I felt so bad for him. And I really hope that he can find that success in Williams this year that he almost had with Ferrari. I don't think they're going to win a driver or a constructors championship at Williams this year. I don't think that's in the cards. No. But I hope that he gets a little bit of a redemption arc this year because they were so close last year, and I was kind of, despite being a huge McLaren fan, I was kind of pulling for Ferrari because I felt bad that but they've won so many constructor championships.
I'm telling you, Williams will be above Aston Martin this year, so that's a win right there. So they'll be the fifth best team. I think
that would be amazing if they finished sixth and they were best of the rest. That would be unbelievable. But if they got into the top five, God, I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Like you're saying, you love Carlos Sainz. I think they left out, his emotional departure from Ferrari. If you remember all the photos, basically he's in there, just crying, faces all red. So I think but I think they needed to focus that emotion somewhere else, and it was on Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff.
Well, they ended the show with Toto Wolff leaving Lewis that voicemail, that voice message or whatever. And I'm not going to lie.
Did you cry?
Choked me up a little bit. Choked me up a little bit. Yeah. But there was so much more that went into it. I mean, they did show briefly that they let him do donuts, you know, at the final race, which was really cool, you know, but there was just so much between. If I was writing that show or producing that show, I would have highlighted how Ferrari did it the wrong way and how Mercedes did it the right way with taking a driver that you respect. Now, obviously, Lewis was there for a lot longer and won them a lot more. But, you know, I think Carlos deserved a better, you know, exit than maybe he got at Ferrari when you stack it up against what, you know, Mercedes did for Lewis. You know, maybe they couldn't, they shouldn't maybe have done them on the same level, but they could have done a little bit more. I thought it was a little lackluster. I'm disappointed in you, Ferrari. Yeah, well, and so they got 10 episodes for Netflix. They can only add so much. I think that some of their picks were a little iffy in my book. Some of the drama that they added didn't really. It's not perfect, but I'd watch it again. I will watch it again next year. I don't know how many more seasons. I know they're aiming to get past 10, so we're going to have at least another. As long as people are watching, they're getting those ratings. They'll keep making them. I mean, it's not a perfect show, but it is a good show, and I know it takes a little bit of heat and flack from you know, F1, you know, old school fans. But I think if they, you know, kind of watch the show, and for what it is, it's not, you know, it's not a recap of, you know, what happened. It's a dramatization of a season together. Pull what you, like I said, I take the races kind of out of it because I know what's going to happen. So that doesn't really do anything for me. I look at the drivers, the team principals, the owners, getting to know these people, and just how absolutely rich some of these owners are. It's crazy. Everybody, but, you don't get to that level. F1, you are. I mean, that is rich, just the money. They don't even care. I mean, they don't even know. I think what poverty is. They just never had it in their life. I just want to dig through their couch cushions and pick up those, you know, $100 gold bars. They're not going to miss them. They're not going to miss them. So, anything you want to you think they should have added? I mean, like I said, it wasn't perfect. It was good. It's good. It's fun to watch. You know, I think that they hit some good emotional notes. I think they added stuff they didn't need to add. They left out stuff that I probably would have put in. But, you know, overall, it's a good, fun watch, and it gets you fired up for the year. Yeah. You know, I mean, it came out right before the first race of the season. That was the only thing. I'll say that kind of, usually it's a few weeks. It kind of gets you. Yeah, usually it's in February. Yeah. So being 1 week before the season starts basically gave me 1 week to try to binge watch all this. So next year, please bring it back to February. Yeah, because it gives us something to do in February. Exactly. Right? You know, because March, you're all excited. You're watching practices. You're getting ready for the race and all that. And they're like, oh, here, watch 10 hours of 10 hours of last year. Yeah. So, put it out a little sooner would be my only thing. Now, join us again. I think the next time we do this is going to be June. Well, not June, but June 27th. F1, the movie came out. If you haven't seen the new 2 trailers, I don't know if you have. I've seen the trailers. It looks amazing. They showed a bunch of the drivers watching the new trailer, and they're like, wow, this is super realistic. So it's supposed to be the most realistic driving movie of all time. So we'll be the judges of that, and we will be here to review that. So leave in the comments what you think about Drive to Survive and how we did basically talking about it, and join us next time.
Follow us on YouTube at the United States of F1, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at United States F1. Copyright Brugman Media Limited 2025.